I don't know how to start the show. Lalelulelo.
Let's talk about Valentine's Day for a minute.
You want to talk about Valentine's Day?
Yeah.
What do you want to say about Valentine's Day, Meredith?
Why in God's name do we have Valentine's Day? It's a worthless holiday. It was literally created by Hallmark. Why do you have to have a day that reminds you to love me?
Because I think that's how a lot of modern marriages might work, is that they sort of might forget that aspect and don't like have like a daily reminder. So you need to set aside a day, and a greeting card company took advantage of that and has been running with that ball for 100+ years. I don't know how long Valentine's Day is.
I don't either, but
we didn't research Valentine's Day.
No.
I mean, you're right. I think also another reason is, how else can you make single people feel awful?
I know.
Yeah.
It makes people feel bad.
What's
That's
a better
why
way?
I hate it.
Yeah.
I always hated this holiday because the kids at school, you know, they had those little cookie grams.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your mom bought you a whole bunch, so you were fine, but I didn't get any.
Yeah.
And it always made me feel really bad. So it's like, why would you want a holiday that makes people feel bad?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're 100% right on that, is that like this day is just soul crushing. Like if you've been single for a while or you just broke up, like it really is. Like it's just a punch to the gut. And it's just the way it has to be, I guess. I mean, to me, that's always been the thing about Valentine's Day that has upset me the most as well. It's just such a terrible thing if you happen to be single on that day. Like you're an open target for jokes and everything like that.
Yeah.
Let's kick somebody while they're down, you know? So you have to try to salvage it, or maybe make a Galentine's Day, like via Parks and Rec. But, you know, it's one of those weird holidays that just keeps on coming at us no matter what. Like there's nothing we can do to get away from Valentine's Day. I mean, it's powerful and strong. Trust me, there's a lot of guys out there who, like, one of the main goals in their year in a relationship is not to screw up Valentine's Day, because it's a big deal.
Yeah. People at my work were freaked out that I don't like this holiday, but it's because I just never have. I never have.
And you've never really wanted to celebrate it, which, I mean, hey, listen, that's fine by me. It means one less day. I don't have to go out there and buy overpriced roses from the side of the road or chocolates or anything like that. If anything, we've hit the day after chocolate covered strawberry sale, because that's your favorite thing, and they're half off the day after.
See, I don't know. We don't need to go into talk about holidays. I was just about to bring up another point, but
oh yeah,
yeah.
Are you just Meredith takes down holidays?
Yeah,
yeah. You know what, Arbor Day? Go fuck yourself.
No, I was gonna say that Mother's Day is a good holiday, because Mother's and Father's Day, you do need a day where you're like, you know what? You're fucking awesome. You do all this shit all year long.
Yeah,
Here's something for that.
You need it for the kids to recognize, because kids will just look at you as a cash machine that does whatever they need,
like Maya
waits
does.
on you hand and foot. You know, and that's one thing you always have to draw the line as well, to not just like be your kid's butler. Because I can remember in high school there was a friend of mine, and I'm not gonna say his name because people back in my hometown listen, and he was just a huge dick to his mom. I mean, ordered her around. I mean, she waited on him almost literally hand and foot.
Yeah.
And he was just a massive jerk to her all the time. And she just was like, she thought he walked on water, so she would just do it or whatever. You know, like she had like a bad knee and she was going upstairs to go get like toys and stuff for him and bring them back downstairs. So it was always this interesting thing. I always felt, even then I felt bad for her. But you just need that day to sort of like people like, hey, throw a little love towards them.
Yeah.
Throw a little love towards your father. Let them know that they're appreciated and stuff like that. Anyways, that a kid knows, it's a pretty damn thankless job. Like no one's ever just like, hey, great job raising your kid. Nobody cares. They only care if your kid brings a Molotov to school.
Well, anyways, long diatribe to say that we did a Valentine's Day episode after Valentine's Day.
After Valentine's
Day. Because we hate Valentine's Day so much, we didn't want to give it the respect.
Yeah, and I mean that's my main issue about it right there, is I didn't even bother to look it up on the calendar. I took one glance and I thought, oh yeah, it'll fit in our schedule.
I forgot.
And then when it didn't fit in the schedule, I didn't say like, hey, let's get recording right now. Let's get going. Like we never did that. It never happened. So that was it. Oh, did I mention that we host a podcast? Did that come up?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, hello everybody.
Hello. I'm Pedro and this is Gritty Reboot.
Yep.
Today, we have a film from 1981 and 2009, similar but couldn't be more different. That is My Bloody Valentine.
Hell yeah.
So, this is an interesting one for us because I had never seen the original film.
I haven't either.
Yeah, you hadn't seen it either. And I think the one thing that I was interested in this, I always heard people speak about it very highly. And so that had a ton of interest for me. It's just one of those movies I never really got around to because I saw the remake when it came out and thought it was lukewarm at best. So this was an interesting endeavor to actually go and watch the movie. So we started off watching on HBO Max, right?
Yeah.
Like we would normally do for any movie that we are looking for. And earlier in the day, I had just pinched a nerve in my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in a lot of pain. I'd had some painkillers. Like I was in a rough spot, and I didn't sleep well the night before because of some of the issues. So I think we get about 15 minutes in to this movie, and I pass out cold.
Yeah.
Like I was gone. Like she tried to wake me up. I stayed up another 10 minutes and just passed right out again. Like I could not stay awake any longer.
Well, to your credit, I mean, it was a boring movie.
Well, and that's how I felt about it, watching it. So we missed our opportunity to watch together. You did watch the movie, and I slept. And I was like, I will catch it one day. And I want you to know, listeners, for the briefest of moments, I thought about, what if I just didn't watch it and said I did? But then I realized I would just be like, yeah, that's crazy, basically during your entire section of the whole movie. So I set out to watch the movie, and I did something foolish. I downloaded another copy of the film from somewhere that was maybe not as reputable as HBO Max. And what I got was something very cool. I got a director's cut.
All right.
Yeah, I got a director's cut because this movie is infamous for its real lack of gore, correct?
Correct.
I found a version that didn't have that problem, and I wasn't even looking for it.
Nice.
So I was able to watch this movie with almost all of its original kills restored.
Well, that's not fair.
And I didn't realize that was a thing until probably the third or fourth kill that I was like, because the footage looks different. So I had no idea that was going to come up. So I feel like we might have very different feelings about this movie.
Yeah, that's not fair.
Well, I mean, I know it may not be fair, but it wasn't what I was going for. It was a very unique experience. And, once I got into the movie, I really did like it. But going back to the film itself, we were talking about 1981's My Bloody Valentine.
Yeah.
This is directed by George Mahawka, and this is a Canadian production. It stars Paul Kelman, Laura Holler, Ben Affleck's father, Neil Affleck, and John Franks. This was back in the early 80s, right post-Halloween, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is in a mad rush to make slasher movies. And one of the big things that you see happen in this time period is that there are tax incentives in Canada, and the law wasn't particularly well written for film crews to take advantage of it. So there was nothing for them to say moderate what kind of content could be used for a Canadian production that would cash in on those tax incentives. So once producers realized that they could make cheap horror schlock over the border and get tax incentives back in their pockets, the floodgates were on. And this is one of the earlier movies in that trend. Because I think before this, a couple of Jamie Lee Curtis movies had come out, also Canadian productions, Prom Night the year before in 1980, and Terror Train. I think we've seen both those. We'll have to cover Prom Night one day. I think they did reboot Terror Train as well, but I've never seen the original or anything like that. So this led to this period that we've gotten right here. And My Bloody Valentine, even without the changes in the different versions that we might have seen, to me, the film reminded me of another film that we'd reviewed previously, and that's Black Christmas. Because it feels uniquely Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, kind of a strange thing. And no, it's not the killer running around saying sorry, as he stabs people or hits them with a pickaxe. Like, this movie has some character to it, right? Like, it's certainly not generic. Even if the characterization don't always work, it's there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can name some things about, like, Happy and some of the other characters that show up in the movie, right? Like, they have little character traits that kind of bleed into it. It's not a very typical or sanitized script or anything like that, in my opinion. And I think that's one of the things that I started to enjoy about the movie. Because I even mentioned that when we first started watching. I said, movie's got a lot of character. Remember? I said that.
Yeah, you said it like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about. It was just kind of like Black Christmas. Is a little bit of like character and some flavor in the screenplay was pushing through. Now, that doesn't absolve this movie, but I thought it was something very interesting to note that reminded me of that better movie.
I wish I would have gotten to see that.
I had no idea.
Because that really was part of the reason why I didn't like the movie is the gore was like cut away.
Yeah, it's like a 1950s movie, or even not even like you wouldn't even see this kind of cut done on TV because it was basically like a 1950s version of the film. Somebody would come up to, the killer would come up and the miner would begin to throw the pickaxe in and it would just cut away, right? Immediately cut to the next.
Exactly. So the reason why you have so many of those cutaways for the original cut is the MPAA cut more than 5 minutes out of this movie.
Yeah, because it's not that much longer. It's like 4 extra minutes of stuff is what's in it.
Mostly because it was released shortly after John Lennon's death.
Yeah, a very strange reason, but it's very odd to think about that a news story would stick around that much. But in the 80s, the news cycle did move slower.
It was John Lennon.
Yeah, and it was John Lennon. He was like one of the most famous people on the planet was shot. So
yeah,
that story stuck around a little bit. So people were a little hesitant about violence. It's happened before. There's been some movies that have been edited and moved around due to Columbine or 9/11. It was a Tim Allen movie that almost got canceled because it was about a bomb on a plane.
So this movie, it has a lot to do with mining.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. It is all about a mining community.
I thought that was interesting. An interesting set for a horror movie. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of perfect because mines are claustrophobic and they're dark.
Yeah, they're real nasty places.
And they're dangerous and all the above.
Yeah, they're not a place you want to be. And you're certainly not a place you want to be when someone's lost their mind.
Yeah.
And so the movie very early on covers probably one of the most terrifying things people could imagine, which is a cave in and getting trapped inside a mine. And I think it's a pretty cool little sequence where they talk about everybody getting trapped and Harry having to basically kill and eat everybody to stay alive.
Yeah.
And to survive the time he was down there trapped before they could rescue him. And the whole thing, drove him mad. And listen, as far as like slasher origin stories go, that's a pretty solid one.
Yeah.
I was like, I probably want to kill my boss too, And so he comes back and he kills his, it's a year later after the incident, and he comes back and he kills his boss, and I think he kills the mayor.
Yeah.
He kills the mayor. That's right, the mayor. And so you get to see this, and he's put away, or so we believe. And then, because all he wants to do is stop Valentine's Day, because that's when the whole thing occurred. And he has the signature of, killing somebody and putting their heart inside of a Valentine's Day candy box.
Mm-hmm.
A nice touch, by the way. Even though the heart effect is not particularly well done, it still is something that's iconic. That's very much this movie. So yeah, he wants to stop all Valentine's Day activities, including the dance, which is pretty much how we come into the movie, correct?
Yeah.
There's some teenagers that want to have a dance because that's the formula, right? We are very much deep in that slasher formula. It's really strange, like sometimes when the formula of a certain movie is made, all these slasher movies that are made in this era, like Friday the 13th and Prom Night, they're all about something that happened like 20 years ago or 10 years ago, resurfacing now, and that's the killer's motivation in some way, shape, or form. Mm-hmm. They all have that plot element. Friday the 13th probably does it the best out of all those, and same thing with its twist. Prom Night's kind of whatever, but and this movie is, I think it's fine where the movie ends up going, with that kind of story, but where it begins is far more interesting to me, because as I watched it, I kept thinking like, wow, that seems like a much cooler movie about like that guy who survived all that stuff and had to eat people to stay alive and went insane. And it's sort of a shame the movie isn't necessarily about that, except for a few minutes to set up all our shenanigans.
See, he goes about killing teens, right?
Yeah.
So why does the movie start off with a like naked, topless girl in a mine?
That's right. Yeah.
Like he spends time with her.
Yeah.
He spends a lot of time with her before he kills her. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, okay, so I guess this is a miner getting his rocks off.
Yeah.
But no, it was Harry.
Yeah.
And I just didn't get.
Yeah, to me,
I didn't get that scene.
Yeah, scene added for titillation and one extra.
Just
kill
a topless chick.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's pretty shameless reasons to insert a topless chick into a movie, but that by far is probably one of the more shameless. She's just kind of there. She's just there. Doesn't make any sense at all.
Nope.
Doesn't make any sense. It happens. It goes, and that's it. And that kill is the same on both versions, I do believe.
Yeah.
Because by the way, on my version, all the kills were like really washed out. The very little saturation in the color. They're clearly like from a different source, and that scene didn't have it. Yeah, you're still really mad that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still really, yeah. This wasn't intentional.
Because I would have probably enjoyed the movie a little bit more.
So we have everything that leads up to the whole event. But the movie itself is pretty simple, right? Because if we're not talking about the police investigation and trying to figure out what's going on, the only other real story of substance is the love triangle, right?
Yes.
And that's Tom, Axel, and Sarah, correct?
Yep.
It's not an engaging love story. It's just kind of there. Tom went away for a little bit to make something of himself. It didn't work out, and his old girlfriend's dating Axel.
Yeah.
There's not much more to it than that backstory I just gave you, but the movie keeps kind of circling back to it over and over again. It's not really engaging. Like I felt I saw a better version of this movie, but I still didn't really love this movie. But I did kind of like it. And once again, I know you're shooting daggers at me with your eyes, because one of the things I did like was this movie's got kick-ass gore. It really does. There's a sequence, I think it's Happy, he gets a pickaxe like right through the bottom of his chin and it pops his eye out. And the effect looks fantastic for 1981. The woman who's killed in the laundromat?
Yeah.
That's another one. You see a lot more of her charred corpse.
See, I bet that was a good kill.
Yeah.
Because it looked like it was until they cut it away.
A character at the end of the film, he's in glasses, kind of chubby. In the theatrical cut, he just kind of comes around a corner bleeding, right?
Uh-huh.
They're like, oh, I guess he's dead, with no explanation. And in that one, you can see him getting shot in the face with a nail gun. That's not even losing gore. Without that context, the next sequence is just strange. And there's no connection to like the danger that character's in. An incredible disservice to this film was done by the MPAA, because I think this would have been a movie you would have liked, because you do enjoy old school slasher sensibilities. And I think to rob this movie of one of those main elements is a travesty, because I'm going to come away from this movie as a solid 7 out of 10. I don't have nostalgia for it. And I think it's a little cheesy, but man, I dig that character in it. And whew, boy, the gore's great.
Yeah, I would probably rate it about a 4 out of a 10.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like I said, I did fall asleep during it, and having another chance to watch it, I appreciated it a little bit more, but it still does have its problems. Like I said, you're really only dealing with those two storylines. And I guess let's talk about the resolution here. We've already talked about this movie for about 10 minutes, so eventually we do reveal that the mayor's son, Tom, is the killer, correct?
Yes.
Because Harry killed his father right in front of him. And did the theatrical cut have the blood splashing on his face from each pickaxe coming down?
No.
Oh, yeah. So he's like, as like 8 years old into the bed, blood's just like splashing his face over and over again as he watches it. And you can see the madness like overtake him. And it comes into play. I mean, sure, it's a solid setup for him to eventually be revealed as the killer. And probably in theatrical cut, it's just another scene that happens with this movie. It's robbed of its importance. The teeth are pulled right out of it by the MPAA, or whoever ended up having to be cut. It might not have been the MPAA at that point. But you understand, whoever made the decision on having to cut this thing down just did such a damn disservice to it.
How do you feel about the movie's pacing?
I've seen glaciers move quicker.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
the movie, like I said, I mean, they're throwing a party. There's a love triangle. There's a little bit of investigation. But all in all, like, these things are just kind of floating there. The miner occasionally runs around. He does his kills and things like that. But the movie isn't really concerned about getting anywhere quickly.
So, can I have a morbid moment?
Sure.
Okay. Brace yourself.
All right. I'm bracing.
All right. In the laundromat scene with the corpse that comes out of they keep talking about the smell.
Yeah.
Right? What do you think that smelled like?
Like, oh man, I can only imagine. Because I was thinking about this the other day, because I was watching like a Reddit video, and there had been a factory that exploded. And I was like, it can't be that bad. And this guy was kind of smoking. He turned around and like the other half of his body was charred. And I was like, oh my God. And as I went to the comments right after, and the original poster, the OP, he had said, the smell is something I'll never forget. And like, I just sort of thought about like ruined barbecue meat, or like that one time Tony Padilla made raccoon meat and he threw that on the pit, and the smell that came off of it.
Ugh.
I was like, humans got to be like worse than that, right? And the existential horror of like a person's flesh is something you're smelling.
Yeah.
Like, that's got to be just horrible.
Because it's a laundromat, so it's got the laundry smell.
Yeah. So it's wet. It's mildewy in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's, and she's been slowly cooked in that thing.
Anyways,
slowly.
Morbid moment.
Very morbid. No, I mean, we can talk about the kills. Like I said, I talked about the eyeball thing. I thought that was really well done. I'll try to put together like a compilation for you, because there's one on YouTube I think you can watch.
Okay,
where they put
great.
together all the kills. And I think you would come away with a better appreciation.
I think so.
Yeah, I give it a recommend. I really do.
That's why I was so mad.
Yeah, if you, I know she's calm now, but it's not my fault. I didn't know. It wasn't until I was like, damn, man, this movie's gorier than I thought. And then like that third kill popped out. I was like, wait a minute, this footage looks completely different. And that's when I put it together. I started doing some Googling and found out for 2009, when they made the remake, they pushed out this version of the movie. And that's what it was. I think this is just a special feature on like the Blu-ray of the 2009 movie. But yeah, that's all it is. And like I said, we'll check it out. It's pretty good. I do give the movie a solid recommendation. I really think you should check it out, especially if you love old school Friday the 13th or things like I talked about, Terror Train or Black Christmas. I think there's something like you really... You might enjoy in this movie. And like I said, it's got enough character that comes through to make it interesting. There's like a nice camaraderie or friendship really between the characters that a lot of movies just really struggle with. This movie does easily.
I wonder, okay, so this is Quentin Tarantino's favorite slasher movie film.
Really, his favorite?
His favorite slasher film.
Huh.
So I was shocked by that. So I wonder if he saw the director's cut.
Well, it would not have been available before 2009.
Damn.
Yeah, it would never have been available before 2009.
So I wonder why he likes that movie so much.
I'm not saying he might not have ever seen that. I mean, somebody had to have had the footage. Whoever was in charge of it, so they didn't have it. And when they did the remaster of the movie, they're like, oh shit, here it is. You know, they just found it and they were able to show it. So that might have been the first time. I don't know. But for it to be his favorite, without the gore, I mean, hell, put me to sleep. So, what's that say? So it's just something you sort of need in this kind of movie, like a nice level of gore. The version I saw had it, and so I came away really, really digging this movie. And like I said, that's not something I can always say.
Well, I got one interesting fact before we move on to the new movie. The location of the shoot was Sydney Mines, Nova Scotia. They chose it for its rustic appeal. When the town discovered they were going to shoot there, the town spent $50,000 to have the mine painted and cleaned. This defeated the purpose of choosing where to shoot.
Yeah.
So they had to spend $75,000 out of the budget to get it back to its original state.
They thought, they're going to use our mine. We got to have them looking spiffy.
Yeah.
We got to go out there. We got to get the Mr. Clean. We got to get the brooms. And they went all out. They cleaned it up. And they get there like, where's the dirty piece of shit mines that we were looking for?
The budget on this movie was $2.3 million. It made $5.7 million.
Even in 1981 numbers, that's not great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you want to at least double your budget. And like I said, this when I found that number too, and I was kind of surprised it was that high. I really was. I was really surprised that this movie ended up costing that kind of money. But yeah, so with that being said, there are no sequels to My Bloody Valentine. The movie sat dormant for a number of years until 2009 when we got ourselves a remake.
Yep.
Exactly what did you see?
Something was following us.
This is the most horrific event this town has ever seen. Authorities are calling this the Valentine's Day Massacre.
In the town of Harmony.
Like I said, in 2009, we got the official title, My Bloody Valentine 3D.
Come here, you better check this out.
What is it?
Directed by Patrick Lussier, written by Todd Farmer, starring Lindsay Rue, Tom Atkins, the legend himself, Jamie King, Kerr Smith, and Jensen Ackles.
So right off the bat, I love how this movie starts.
Yeah.
It starts as a gory fucking mess. And I love that.
Yeah.
You have Harry Warden, who is in a coma. He wakes up from his coma, and he just destroys a whole floor of a hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that is some over-the-top kind of gore. It reminded me, weirdly enough, of the Black Christmas remake, where I thought it had a lot of gore just for the sake of it. But it was done in a good way, because the movie isn't just overflowing with gore. It really isn't. It's despite how it starts, it's not an overly gory movie. But, I mean, that is an interesting way to start the movie. To me, I was initially put off by the opening after watching a little bit of the first movie, because the movie just kind of speed runs the original movie, basically. We don't even get like a flashback, because first of all, they cut out the cannibalism. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah.
Harry no longer eats them. He only
No.
murders them for oxygen.
Yeah.
He kissed them and sucked the oxygen out of their body. That's what I thought of when he said, we needed the oxygen. I was like, oh, there's oxygen everywhere, man. You might as well eat them while you went that far. Why not go further? So that's cut out. And like I said, that's an interesting thing. And we never see that at all. We're only told about it in newspaper clippings and from another news broadcast. So we don't get to see any of that. So that's, to me, like a strike against it. You know, you already getting away from the more interesting elements of the movie. And basically, we're introduced to our main cast, Kerr Smith, Jensen Ackles, and Jamie King. And there were a bunch of 30-year-olds playing teenagers because we're eventually going to move 10 years in time. And we're finishing the speed run of the first movie. It's the same party at the end. And the killer comes back and basically wreaks havoc.
My favorite kills of this movie, which is the shovel kill, where they're all partying out in the mine. Harry comes back and he shoves a hand shovel through somebody's freaking face. It was
very cool.
Pretty cool. And it slides down.
You know,
I've seen it before, but
sure. I think there's another version of it, like Wrong Turn.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Shrieky, she gets like the top of her head chopped off, and it does a nice crane shot till you see her body falling down. This is an interesting shot, actually, because, you know, for this movie, we had a little something interesting that we don't normally have. We had the old physical copies. A friend of yours actually lent us the DVDs, and there wasn't a whole lot really on the original film, but the second one had a few behind-the-scenes elements. And it had the effects guy who basically built a whole head for that. He built everything from the shovel, the head, practical. And like it was supposed to slide down and looked really good. And at the end of the day, they ended up covering it with CG.
Yeah.
So,
sucks.
and I think it looks okay. Gary J. Tunnicliffe, by the way, is the name of that effects guy. The way he described it and the way it looked without any lighting, I was like, oh, it looks pretty badass. So, and that's another thing. And that does happen. You know, people got really obsessed with CG and everything like that. So they just try to pump it and everything to try to make things look better. And sometimes you end up making things look worse. We'll go into that big time when we cover the thing. But that's a good example of it here. It was nice to watch some old school special features. I forgot what a lost art that is now.
I know. I miss it.
Yeah, you don't really get that with Blu-ray sometimes. Sometimes you do.
I used to watch all of that.
Yeah, and I listened to a little bit of director commentary on the original film, and it wasn't very good. But I always remembered I used to appreciate watching a movie and then listening to director commentary if I really liked it or if I really hated it. You know, sometimes it was interesting. I used to remember little facts of like Arnold Schwarzenegger was maybe the worst guy to ever do a commentary track.
They're super huge. My friends are super huge horror fans. Mm-hmm. So if I'll mention it to them and maybe we can borrow some more movies.
Yeah, no, it was another great resource, you know, because I went to YouTube always looking for more resources, and I couldn't find those special features. So I've ripped them and I'm going to upload them to YouTube. So if anybody else one day wants to cover the movie properly, they can have access to that footage because it's only going to get harder and harder to find an old DVD.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure there's a lot of them around right now, but trust me, the guys thought VHS would last forever, and that's not the case.
So we go 10 years later from the tragedy of all the teens getting killed in the mine.
Yeah. We only have our main cast survives, and that's it.
People in the town still blame him.
So that is different. He did screw up. His screw up. He forgot to bleed the mines, and that's what led to the cave-in.
Yeah.
And that is different from what happened in the original. So, and because of that, he actually does carry some blame. I mean, this is his fault.
I didn't look at it that way.
Well, I mean, if he'd have done his job, they wouldn't have been trapped there. I mean, he didn't go in there and like hit everybody with a pickaxe in the head, but he got them trapped. He almost got them. I mean, he would have got them all killed basically because of oxygen. The only reason one person survived is because he went insane and killed everybody. Otherwise, they all would have died down there, and every single death would have been on his head. Yeah. That does make this movie a little bit different than the original film in its bad guy reveal. But we'll get there in a little bit. Let's keep going down the movie before I talk about the ending. Spoilers.
Harry gets locked in a cage. Eventually, Harry.
Yeah.
Not Harry. Jensen Ackles.
Yeah. Soldier Boy. He gets locked in a cage.
Yeah, he gets locked in a cage, and he watches others kill. He watches Harry kill.
Yeah, he watches Harry come out there and just lay waste to the miner, and he makes like a big show of it, just like, you know, pickaxing this guy over and over again. Pickaxe, by the way, very good weapon to use. Very good. As a slasher weapon goes, that's pretty solid. I think that's a good one that is not used more. It should be used a lot more in movies than it really is.
What do you think the motivation of Harry is?
Well, Harry's just gone insane. That's all. I guess that's the weird thing about the minor character is as much as people sort of talked him up, there's not really a lot to him. You know, he got trapped in a mine. He's angry about it. Came back and killed some people. And, you know, in the first movie's twist is less satisfying, I think. Because, yeah, I mean, he saw it, but there isn't a lot that happened to him that could lead to all that trauma that would make him do all those things to kill people. So I think that kind of twist in that movie's a little hollow. Even if I do love in the original movie him running away, cackling as he cut his arm off. You'll be my Bloody Valentine. Like, that's pretty cool. This movie, because of what you just talked about, gives better pathos to the twist that occurs where we eventually find out our lead character is Harry. And you know, if you look at it from that perspective, like the trauma that he causes does stick with the protagonist of this movie a lot more than what was ever in the original. So I think that is one nice element of writing in this movie. And that's going to be one of the few times I'm going to compliment this movie. Because that is something that I did like. He's revealed to be the bad guy. He sees Harry coming up from behind his former girlfriend, Jamie King. And he's like, he's right here, shoot him, shoot him, shoot him. He just kind of walks through the scene. And then you realize only he can see him. And I thought that was...
Yeah, you're jumping to the end.
Yeah, I'm jumping to the end. Well, I've already danced around the topic like 4 times. I might as well talk about it. We can always go back and talk about this stuff. I like that scene in the movie because it's a great way to pay all that stuff off like we just talked about with that trauma. And then like the movie just goes and shats it all away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really...
You have a bad ending.
Yeah, he just dissolves away in a pretty cheesy... it's just a regular dissolve. There's no effect to it. He just kind of goes away. And then Kerr Smith is like, it was you the whole time. You're Harry. And he's like, I am. Like, you are? Like, it didn't make it, like, all of a sudden it's a possession sort of thing. And the movie just drops it like that. No big deal.
So to go back to Harry being in the cage earlier in the movie. So does that just go?
And that's another reason I want to talk about that is because like they show, and I went back and watched it again. They show in a flashback that he shuts the door really hard.
Yeah,
but that's
and he
not
bends the
what
thing.
happens. Like it shows Jensen Ackles in there shutting it hard, and that's all he does. While he looks evilly and smiles at the dead body. But I was like, no, the cage was like bent.
Yeah, it was
You
bent.
couldn't have done that. And the movie just kind of ignores that fact. So we can have the twist.
Yeah, because when they go to get him out of the cage, the guy has to rebend the bar again.
Yeah. They show a shot of it specifically.
Exactly.
That he has to bend that thing
It
out
drives
of the way.
me fucking crazy when movies do this.
Yeah, this is, the twist is a bit more of a cheat. Like I said, that's why I wanted to mention, I like the pathos that went to that decision because he does carry that trauma. He really does. But yeah, it doesn't mean anything in a movie this trashy and dumb.
One of the other things that I didn't like about this movie is the fact that Harry just teleports wherever he feels like it. So it's very lazy writing.
Yeah, he's got a case of like Friday the 13th Part 8. Like if you watch that movie, Jason is flat out one end of the boat, they run, he's all at the other end.
Yeah.
No explanation. And this movie's kind of similar about that. Harry's kind of popping in and out, just showing up really wherever the story kind of needs him. Every now and then some momentum does pick up and there can be nice elements to like a chase. This isn't like a pure awful kind of movie. It just isn't. But most of these scenes are pretty underwhelming and poorly directed. And there's a lot of 3D that's being shoved at you that doesn't do anything anymore.
Yeah.
So I guess let me talk about that because I actually went and saw this movie when it came out. I want to take you back to 2009. This movie came out late January to take advantage of Valentine's Day. So everybody should know Avatar comes out later that same year, 2009, in December. So Avatar is not out, but people are hungry for 3D. The effect is pretty cool. There wasn't a way to fake it at the time, so people were actually shooting in 3D. And this movie was actually shot in 3D. It was a pair of Red Ones combined together, or the SI2Ks, which is an older 16mm format camera. Very small and lightweight because you have to, like I said, put 2 cameras together. And that's how they shot the movie. And because of that, the 3D effects are very, very good in the theater. Obviously, I've not seen the movie since 2009 that way. So the 3D effects are pretty glaring, but it's not as bad as like Friday the 13th Part 3 or a lot of other 80s 3D movies. It doesn't really go to that level, but it is pretty apparent.
Yeah.
So it's just one of the things to take away from it. Also, because of all that digital tech that they used at the time, and they didn't really understand a lot of that, the movie does look very poor today. There is a lot of lighting that isn't quite right. when people move, the motion looks very video-like, and that's all coming from the 3D conversion and then to make it all 2D back again. It gives the movie such a cheap digital look. And it's a shame, too. There is some nice moments of cinematography in it, but a lot of it's undercut by how they chose to shoot the movie.
This movie was the first R-rated film in the U.S. projected in Real D technology.
Yeah, and that's a big deal for it. That's what made it a hit.
So one other thing that I liked about this movie was the character Betsy Rue. Now, if you don't know who Betsy Rue is, she is the naked girl who runs around in the parking lot.
Probably the most gratuitous nude scene in a Hollywood movie that I could ever think
I
of.
love it.
Yeah, no, she actually wanted to do it, correct?
Yeah, I was just about to say that it was her idea to be naked. It was her first nude scene ever.
It was great, by the way.
They were just going to have her hold a sheet. Like when she was going out of the hotel room, she was just going to grab a sheet and cover herself with that. But it kept looking really hokey, and she kept feeling.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
She kept fumbling with it, so she was like, "What don't I just do is balls to the wall?" Like her quote on this was really great. I wish I would have wrote it down, but it was really great. She was just like, "I'm just going to go balls to the wall and see how it goes," and I really love it. It's
one of the movie's better scenes. She was right. It does lend a sense of vulnerability.
Yeah.
The only issue with it is this is probably one of the trashier slasher movies that come out of Hollywood, probably since like the 80s. Because this movie does have sort of a trashy, like they don't want you to see this kind of movie. They think it's bad for you. But, weirdly enough, the movie also takes itself pretty seriously in how the mystery folds out.
Yeah.
Like, I think Kerr Smith
serious as a heart attack.
Kerr Smith does a nice job as the sheriff, but like he's almost out of a different movie. Like his storyline is about having an affair and this baby that's going to come from his mistress, and him trying to find out who the killer is, when the rest of the movie is all this other wacky, whack-to-do Betsy Rue, flying around out there with her tits out.
Yeah.
It just doesn't fit the rest of this movie. And I give her all the credit in the world. She did look fantastic. It's the movie's standout scene.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's had people talking about it for a long time, longer than it really should have. By the way, the writer is the guy she's actually with in that scene.
Yeah.
And fun fact, he also wrote Jason X.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote Jason X. He's not a great screenwriter.
All that I had on here.
Oh, all that you had on there? Well, listen, I told you that. I told you who he was. So that's my fact.
Wow.
I have listened to the commentary track on Jason X.
Step on my toes.
Yeah. Hey, listen, when you listen to Jason X commentary track and learn about Todd Farmer, then you get all that fact. Otherwise, that belongs to me, baby.
Whatever, dude.
And just like that, the podcast is over.
This film was made into a haunted house at Universal Hollywood Horror Nights. I imagine it was probably a terrible ride.
I would assume so. Well, it doesn't really matter. There's been some we went to Universal Studios Horror Nights.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we had some fun, even though there was some movies. Well, we like Resident Evil.
I enjoyed that, actually.
Yeah, I actually really did. I really liked Universal Studios. That was a fun experience.
Universal Studios was the shit.
Yeah, I did not expect to like that as much as I did. I wish I'd
Disney World.
Yeah, Disney was the one that sucked.
Yeah, Disney.
Yeah, we got bled dry. And Universal, we had the Harry Potter experience. We don't even like Harry Potter, and we thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
we thought that was
that ride
cool.
was awesome.
Yeah, that was that's what I wanted from like. Well, they used to have the Back to the Future ride there too, but that's the Simpsons ride now. So I really wish I could have seen the Back to the Future ride, but the Simpsons ride was actually pretty cool because I don't think that's there anymore either.
Huh?
Yeah, I think that's gone too. We can get into a whole diatribe about roller coasters that are gone from places, and, exhibits you can't see anymore.
Sidetrack.
Yeah, I would say this is
Squirrel moment.
A great tangent to get onto. So yeah, My Bloody Valentine was a movie in 2000. Oh no, we already did the intro.
What do you think about the cops?
Oh, this gives me a great chance to talk about one of my favorite actors, Tom Atkins. So he is in this movie, and he is in a ton of genre cinema, playing cops or badasses. He's also been in a ton of horror work. Night of the Creeps is one of my favorites from him. I really love that movie. One day we'll talk about Night of the Creeps, even though it's not a reboot. I just want to talk about Night of the Creeps. I love that movie. And he's in it, and he's awesome. He was supposed to be the Murtaugh character, or I get them confused. He was supposed to be the Mel Gibson character in Lethal Weapon.
Huh.
Yeah, so he has a lot of range, and he shows up in this movie. He's old as shit, but he can still maintain that toughness that he would need to be the former sheriff, right? He does pull that role off effortlessly, and I like that. He's so much fun. And then you have the other half, which is kind of a weird, serious investigation with Kerr Smith and his detectives. as they're trying to like track down leads and stuff like that, find where Harry was. Like this, the movie does have a mishmash of tones that really works against it. I think if the movie was trashier and funnier, I think that could really work to its advantage. And that's one thing the cop storyline really shows you, those two movies kind of clashing together and not really fitting, sadly.
Yeah.
You know, it's a real shame because, like I said, Kurt Smith's not an actor I compliment a lot, but I thought he was really good here, but you know, just not really in the right kind of movie.
What do you think about the kills?
They're all right.
Yeah, they're very run of the mill.
Yeah, there's a lot of lousy CG put on top of things.
Yeah.
And
At least it's gory though.
it is very gory, but you know, I think the studio wanted things to appear more 3D, so they took a 3D effect that they had on set of a person who was real with like a prosthetic on his face, and they put a 2D image on it and said that's more 3D. And so that's what we get. We get a lot of CG and stuff like that. And you do replicate some of the kills. We have somebody in a dryer, and the kill I told you about in the first movie with the eyeball coming out, that's done way better in the original movie. Way better. So they're fine. They're not particularly offensive or anything like that. The movie just has a general sense of crumminess to it.
And then the soundtrack is very run of the mill as well.
Yeah, it's what you'd get from that time.
Yeah.
Period, you know?
It's very generic.
Yeah, and I mean, well, you know, we have a protagonist, and he's not very likable. And I know I've talked about him a bit already, but it's just something to note. Like, he's never a guy you're rooting for. Like, you know, and I understand it's because he has to be the bad guy, but when I think of that, I always like, well, he doesn't have to be the bad guy. You could just write something else. And because of that, it's tough to stay with an unlikable, uncaring protagonist for that long. The love story I think the love triangle here is somehow worse. Because, I mean, she's already married and has kids. First of all, Jamie King shouldn't care about her kid at all. Never shows up and not of any importance
it's not
at
like
all.
She even has a kid.
And she's awful in this. Just awful.
Yeah, the acting is really bad.
Yeah, Jamie King's particularly lousy. She's a model turned actress. She turned a lot of heads in Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor, where she kind of stole every scene she was in. She's really good. And so she got an opportunity to make as an actress, and it never really happened. But, you know, we see her here. We're going to have to talk about her again in the Silent Night remake, which she's much better in. But she's in that one as well. And like I said, she's in this one. The most notable things from her were the ridiculous padded bra she wore in the opening scene.
Yeah.
I mean, like, she gave Angelina Jolie a run for her money in the amount of padding in a bra that we've covered on this show.
Yeah.
Like, when I just kind of noticed it, like, why did you do that? But, you know, other than that, there's not a whole lot to the love triangle in this one. Just kind of spin your wheels.
I have a couple more facts here.
Okay.
Minor tilts his head, right? The minor killer tilts his head.
Yeah.
Before and after kills. That's a nod to Michael Myers.
Makes sense.
Film came out the same year as Halloween 2, so. The other thing is you would never have guessed who turned down this movie.
Oh my God, who turned it down?
Sherry Moon Zombie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Right up her alley, and she said no.
She'd
have been
no.
the Jamie King character, I guess?
Yeah,
Or
I guess.
maybe she'd done the nudity part. Well, no,
It didn't
she wouldn't have
say,
done the nudity.
but yeah.
She might have been that part. Well, what a shame. She could have been in that. I'm trying to think if I've seen her in anything non-zombie.
No, she's never done it.
Yeah, but
that's why she turned it down.
Because can my husband direct it? It might have been a better choice, in all honesty. Actually, I think this is the kind of movie Zombie would have nailed really easily. Zombie got the worst remake he could do in Halloween. Because that's kind of a classier picture. And like, if he'd have had this movie to do, or even better for him, Texas Chainsaw, like a movie that fits his sensibilities, that would have worked. I guess we can lament over what a better film that could have been made. But there's one other thing I wanted to say before we moved into the reviews, is that this was a $14 million movie, pretty modest budget at the time, made $100 million, just over $100 million.
100.7 million.
Yeah, I said just over. And that is a massive number. A massive number. And it is amazing this movie does not have any sequels.
Yeah.
I think, to me, that's the strangest thing about it, is you more than triple your profit, and you never try to make another one of these. The director was ready to come back. Jensen Ackles and Jamie King were signed on for another movie. Farmer wrote a script, and the studio lost interest and decided to move on. And that was it. So we never, listen, I'm not saying we should have got sequels, but it's really weird that we didn't.
Yeah.
And the things that get sequels, I mean, for fuck's sake, I've seen The Boy 2. How the fuck did that get a goddamn sequel?
Wow.
But these two movies never really became a franchise, and that's very strange to me.
All right. Moving into the reviews. So, My Bloody Valentine 81. Both these movies, by the way, didn't have a user review score. So we're just going to go with the Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb.
Sure.
So The 81 movie, 56% on Rotten Tomatoes, 6.2 on IMDb. I would have rated that lots lower. My Bloody Valentine 09, 61% on Rotten Tomatoes, 5.4 on IMDb. So people liked based on Rotten Tomatoes, people liked this one more.
Oh, do they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So here's a 1-star review. I saw this film recently and I was not particularly impressed. Slasher films are by nature films that rarely turn out to be remarkable. Even though they quickly conquer a small legion of fans who give them cult status, this film did not even prove to be truly good slasher film, largely due to a rather weak script and total lack of environment. Everything happens in the small town of Valentine, where the main celebration is, as it could not be otherwise, Valentine's Day. This city is a small mining community around an important mine. One day there is an accident and Harry Warden, a miner, goes crazy and kills a number of colleagues and people, forcing the city to cease to celebrate their party. From then on, the urban legend was born that not now will take on a new life with the initiative led by local youth to reactivate the festivities. This film has a lot of problems. George Mahalka was an inept director who did not know how to use the best of the film to build a tense and sinister environment.
Rude, but accurate.
Where the dark and damp tunnels of the mine were more than excellent places for couples to meet and occasionally drink. The film never really scares us, even with all the gore. It has an uninteresting script where characters' romances are of no interest at all.
Yeah.
Harry Warden's story, with little touches of madness and cannibalism, sound too far-fetched and was not well used. The characters are quite weak, and even the villain is forgettable, which makes us lose interest in the film quite quickly. In addition to the bad characters, most of them merely thought to be there or to die. We have a very mediocre performance of the cast, made of the actors from the basic levels of drama to the point that even the protagonist is unable to comply with his task with a minimum of presence. The film's obsession with romance of dating, in addition to the obvious gore, also did not help the cast to stand out. On the contrary, technically, it's very bad. An interesting and dull cinematography with washed colors and extremely low contrast, sets and costumes that are not interesting or remarkable, and a virtually non-existent soundtrack. The only thing working fine is the visual effects and gore scenes. Mutilations and deaths seem real enough, and there are a number of good ideas, like the human heart cooking in the sausage pan on the body inside the washing machine.
Oh, yeah.
But this is not enough to make the film work. So this guy must have seen the director's cut.
Yeah. I felt like he listed everything about the movie, went over it in detail.
Yeah.
That was a very thorough review for him just really not to like it. We forgot to talk about the heart in the boiling pot. And I love it that they look at it and go, what's that? And just toss it out.
Yeah.
Because all boiled meat just looks like a gray mass.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
And I was like, that's probably what happened. It just looked like a gray mass like everything does. Boiling is the worst way to cook anything except for eggs.
Yeah.
I just awful. Like when they're making boiled hot dogs, just ugh. No, nobody wants that.
Boil your seafood. That's fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Seafood boil. Perfectly fine. Hot dogs, what the fuck is the matter with you? Get out your pit, do it the right way.
Wow.
Hey, I'm just saying. You know how it's gotta go.
Coming out hot. All right.
Oh. So this is a good one to talk about because this is Ebert and Siskel's, one of their more infamous reviews and moments is them talking about Black Christmas. No, not Black Christmas. Them talking about My Bloody Valentine. And because of that, they actually cover it in the show. So I have a clip right here. Bear with me for the poor audio. I want to remind you guys, this is a VHS rip from the mid-'80s.
My Bloody Valentine, our next film, is another mad slasher going after mostly women victims, this time in a coal mining town. I'm really getting sick of these pictures. The movie starts right out by assaulting us. Even before we get to read the title, we see a woman in a state of undress get impaled on a pickaxe. Typical of the dull thrills in the movie is a scene where the mad killer stalks his victim in a laundromat decorated for Valentine's Day.
This is what leads to the dryer kill.
Well, there's a disgusting new wrinkle in this kind of film. We see a middle-aged woman hacked apart. The big guessing game here, if anybody cares, and I sure didn't, is who is the crazed killer wearing the wetsuit and the miner's helmet? It turns out that his identity has to do with a killing that happened 20 years earlier on Valentine's Day in that same town. Gee, isn't that interesting? You want to see someone receive a bloody human heart in a Valentine-shaped candy box? Then you'll love My Bloody Valentine.
Gee, I guess I didn't love it very much. Was it only 2
They're not fans.
that we were praising a movie called Halloween? We thought it was kind of nice, had some style and wit to it. This movie is about the 7th direct ripoff of Halloween. We have New Year's Evil, Prom Night, Friday the 13th, Terror Train.
I forgot about New Year's Evil.
Something terrible happens 20 years ago, or 10 years ago.
I think Terror Train is New Year's Eve.
And all the teenagers get together in the same place, the old train or the old deserted mine shaft or something, and the berserk maniac comes down on them with a knife or a pickaxe or something. First of all, it's disgusting. Secondly, it's so appallingly lacking in imagination. You would think that they could at least come up with a new disgusting angle.
Yeah, I'm sitting there wondering why these people get involved in these films. I mean, what do the women think who are getting pickaxes thrown at them? What do they think they're contributing to art? And I'm also, as you rattle off that list of names, I'm thinking of all those hours we've both logged in movie theaters, slumped over in our seats, just shaking our heads. Boy, I wish this trend would really end.
Boy, well,
and they never made another slasher movie again.
That's a good sign. Let's move on to a much better
Never,
movie.
ever.
We were both disgusted by My Bloody Valentine, the latest mad slasher movie named after a holiday. Another 2 no votes for that one.
By the way, they gave it no votes. This is before they came up with the thumbs up or down system.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a clip from 81 or 82.
All right, so 2009, here's a 1-star review. Well, I didn't expect much, but I didn't expect it to be as bad as it actually is. This movie have nothing to offer except some graphic killings, and it seems this is the whole point of making the movie. Maybe it's fun to make gory scenes, and maybe the producer thought, hey, let's have fun and see if someone will pay to see what we made. The acting is bad to the point of laughable. It's poorly directed, and basically you just end up laughing at all the stupidity. Then maybe this is the point. Maybe it's made bad to make fun of all the genre or the audience. I don't know. It sure isn't worth watching. You would think that they could be a bit more inventive and creative. It's not that hard. The fact that some people give this movie 10 stars is disturbing.
Yeah, and I think he brings up a good point, which, by the way, I don't recommend the reboot at all. I know I didn't end up saying that, but I don't recommend it in the least. And I think this is a movie, the original, that really just kind of yearns for a gritty reboot. I think it's a fantastic idea to do it. And it's a shame the 2009 one was the best they could do.
Yeah.
You know, and they were more concerned with the 3D tech. And I mean, it's fine, but like, I think you can make a really dark and disturbing movie about this same kind of content. Or, you know, a fun, cheesy movie about it. It's a shame the 2009 film kind of tries to do both. And it really ends up failing. And they don't have the kind of director for it. And they certainly don't have the writer for it.
The version that I saw of the original, this would be a gritty reboot.
Yeah.
But I think the version that you saw negates that.
Yeah, because I actually had the kills in it.
Yeah.
The gore was about on par. So I think this is like a trashier 3D reboot as opposed to like a really gritty one. But no, I mean, just a solid remake. I mean, you could do a lot with the idea of like a miner trapped down there and Valentine's Day driving him crazy. You could do a lot of fantastic imagery. It's a shame the 2009 film doesn't really move that direction, any direction in any which way. It just kind of wants to tell that same story again and just not even do it as well.
Yeah.
A solid no recommend for me. Nope, not. Same way with Siskel and Ebert back then. It's a no vote.
Yep.
And if you think it deserves a lot more, maybe a possible yes vote, maybe we should patent that. Oh, wait, somebody already asked. You can let us know that at grittyrebootcast@gmail.com. Email us in the most 90s way possible. And you can also find us, Gritty Reboot, at TikTok and Instagram. We're on there quite a bit as well. And Meredith, what are your socials?
I don't have any socials.
That's right. Fuck social media. She does not do that. You can find me Illusions13 on Twitter. I'm rarely there, but occasionally I'll make a political meme that people hate.
However, if some people start commenting on Meredith, you need to get a social.
No one's coming.
Then I'll get a social. But until that moment happens,
we're going to get one person to respond and say, because the only response we ever had is people telling you you were stupid and Ready Player One's great.
I'm all right with stupid.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. Some guy was really aggressive about it. And I was like, I didn't know Ready Player One was that loved, but apparently it is.
Cool.
Hey, listen, what do I know? But hey, listen, we'll see you next week. And we'll have I don't know what we're doing next week, but we'll figure it out.
Yep. We'll figure it out. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Happy late Valentine's Day, guys. See ya.